London, 1895. The gas lamps flickered outside as Detective Edwin Lockwood stepped out of his carriage. The cobbled streets were damp from an earlier rain, and a thick mist rolled in from the Thames, curling around the grand estate of Kensington Manor. The mansion loomed in the darkness, its Gothic architecture giving it a haunting presence. Lockwood adjusted his coat, shook off a few raindrops, and ascended the stone steps. Before he could knock, the heavy wooden doors creaked open. A stern-faced butler in a crisp black uniform stood in the dimly lit entryway. "Detective Lockwood, I presume?" Lockwood nodded. "Mr. Crawford, I assume. I was summoned urgently." "Indeed, sir. Lady Eleanor is waiting in the study." Lockwood stepped inside, noting the faint scent of old books, polished wood, and something floral, lavender perhaps. The butler led him through a grand hallway lined with oil paintings of Kensington ancestors, their painted eyes seeming to follow his every move. As they entered the study, the glow of a crackling fireplace cast eerie shadows across the room. A massive oak desk stood at the center, bookshelves towering behind it, but Lockwood's gaze settled on the open safe against the far wall. Sitting in an armchair near the fire was Lady Eleanor Kensington, draped in a deep blue gown with intricate silver embroidery. Despite her elegant appearance, her face was creased with worry. A steaming cup of tea rested untouched beside her. She looked up as Lockwood entered. "Detective, thank you for coming. My most precious possession, my family's ruby necklace, has vanished." Lockwood approached, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "Stolen?" Lady Eleanor sighed. "Yes, but there were no signs of forced entry. The safe was locked last night when I went to bed. This morning it was open, and the necklace was gone." Lockwood stepped toward the safe. It was an old but sturdy design built into the wall. He ran his fingers along the edges of the door, no scratches, no pry marks. "Interesting. If there was no break-in, then someone in this house must have taken it." His every move. Lady Eleanor hesitated. "The only people in the house last night were myself, my maid Anna, my butler Mr. Crawford, and my nephew Henry." Lockwood turned. "Tell me about Henry." Lady Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "My late brother's son. He's troubled. He had a difficult upbringing, but I took him in after my brother passed. He's my only living relative." Lockwood nodded. "And does Henry stand to inherit anything from you?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Everything. I have no other heirs, but I refuse to believe he would do something so dishonorable." Lockwood said nothing, instead turning toward the large window. The curtains were drawn shut, but as he reached out and parted them slightly, a gust of cold air seeped through. He checked the window latch. It was still locked from the inside. "This confirms one thing. The thief never left the house. The necklace is still here." A tense silence filled the room. Lockwood turned to the three servants standing nearby: Henry, the young nephew, Mr. Crawford, the butler, and Anna, the maid. Henry, a man in his early 20s, leaned against the fireplace, his arms crossed. He had a confident, almost arrogant demeanor, but there was something forced about it, like he was trying too hard to seem indifferent. The butler, Mr. Crawford, was as still as a statue, his expression unreadable. The maid, Anna, fidgeted, wringing her hands nervously. Lockwood studied them all, then spoke. "I'll need to ask each of you a few questions." The investigation. Henry Lockwood approached Henry first. "Did you see or hear anything unusual last night?" Henry shrugged. "Not at all. I went to bed early." "Did you visit this study at any point?" Henry hesitated, just for a second. "No." Lockwood narrowed his eyes. "Are you sure?" Henry's jaw tensed. "I already told you. I was in my room." Lockwood didn't push further. Yet. Mr. Crawford turning to the butler, Lockwood asked, "Where were you last night between midnight and dawn?" Mr. Crawford adjusted his gloves. "As always, sir, I retired to my quarters after ensuring the doors and windows were locked." Lockwood nodded. And did you see Henry or Anna at any point? The butler hesitated before replying. I recall seeing Mr. Henry in the hallway late at night, near Lady Eleanor's study. Lockwood's eyes flickered to Henry, who said nothing. Anna finally, he turned to Anna, the maid. Anna, tell me, did you clean this study last night? She nodded quickly. Yes, sir, as I always do. Did you touch the safe? Her eyes widened. No, sir. I would never. Lockwood studied her face. She was nervous, too nervous. Then something caught his eye. A thin thread of red silk on the carpet. He knelt and picked it up. It matched the velvet lining of the missing necklace's box. Nearby, another clue, a small black button, identical to those on Anna's uniform. Lockwood pocketed the evidence, his mind racing. The truth is revealed. Lockwood turned to Lady Eleanor. Your necklace isn't missing. It was hidden. A stunned silence filled the room. Lockwood walked to the fireplace, running his hands along the brickwork. Then he pressed against a loose brick. Click. A hidden compartment slid open. Inside lay the ruby necklace, glistening in the firelight. Anna gasped, then suddenly fell to her knees. Please forgive me. It wasn't my idea. Henry made me do it. All eyes turned to Henry. His face turned pale. Lockwood sighed. You planned to steal the necklace, sell it, and return later to claim your inheritance. But you needed someone else to do it. You threatened Anna, didn't you? Henry opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no defense. Lady Eleanor's eyes filled with sorrow. Henry, how could you? Lockwood stepped forward. Greed is the oldest crime in history, but deception never lasts forever. As the police arrived to take Henry away, Lady Eleanor clutched her recovered heirloom. Lockwood placed his hat back on his head. Another case closed. Another secret uncovered. Stepping out into the misty night, he disappeared into the fog, already thinking of his next mystery.